Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel. In this series of videos, I'm going to be building and racing a TLR 22T 4.0. I've heard different things about this truck, that this may be their last iteration, that it may be out of production. I've seen them on store shelves and at numerous vendors for sale, so I think that's misinformation. In any event, this is a two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive truck, and they're very similar to the buggies, but from what I've heard, because this is my first stadium truck, they're a very good place for beginners to start. They're less expensive and a lot less maintenance than one of the four-wheel drive buggies or trucks. They are similar to buggies in their overall design. In fact, they share a lot of components between the two, but the buggies are a lot more finicky to drive and set up. You spend a lot of time tuning and getting them just right, and if they're not just right, they don't drive as well and you're going to be off the pace, whereas these are far more flexible. A lot of people say that they do almost no changes other than tires or maybe some ride height and camber adjustments from track to track. Once they've got the decent setup going, that's all they need. And that's very attractive, especially for beginners who are trying to learn the sport. So racing one of these indoors or outdoors, whether it's dirt, clay, or carpet, might be a great place for you to begin your RC adventures. In any event, I'm going to go through the full build on this and take it to the track and show you some race footage and have a lot of fun with it. Oh, and I am going to be building this for the mod class. So I'm going to be using a fast motor, and I'm going to be doing a lot of extra parts that may not apply to you if you plan to run stock. If you are new, don't go mod. Start stock. Easier to control. These two-wheel drive buggies and stadium trucks can be wheelie machines, and if you're not set up right and you haven't developed the finesse on the trigger, you're going to spend a lot of time crashing versus racing, and you're definitely have to buy a lot of parts to be competitive, aftermarket stuff. So run stock. Get to know it. You can always upgrade. All you're doing is switching an ESC and a motor and then adding other performance parts. But it's a good way to go to run stock, especially if you are a beginner. You'll spend less money, you'll do more driving and less spending and less working. Okay, so let's start by seeing what's in our box here. And of course, usually on top is a body, which needs to be painted. And now, being that this is the 4.0, it's going to have all the goodies. And it's pretty much got the best of all the parts that they've evolved throughout their development of this truck. A lot of the things that would normally be options, they include. And of course, everything is well organized into bags with letters, and you follow those in the directions. TLR is really good about that. Just to give you some idea, these are the optional tuning parts that are included. Rear hexes, various features. Like these items sometimes are plastic, in this case they're all aluminum. aluminum shock caps, the high performance differential parts, shock pistons, etc. So we'll find out more about those in greater detail as we go. So those are all the stock parts, and then there's the necessary things like a speed control. And since I'm going to run mod, I went with the X10 Pro, which has a lot more tuning adjustability features to it. And as for the motor, I went with the Phenom from Trinity. This is the Signature Series Dakota Fend motor. Basically, they claim that they're giving you the same kind of motor as their pro drivers. And specifically, this is a 7-turn motor. So it's a hot motor. It's going to be very fast. These are some titanium shafts that are used for the lower shock mounts on the rear swing arms in particular. It replaces the using a standard steel screw with a stud and then a lock nut. This is just a little carbon fiber piece that holds down the wing, but actually this is for the buggy. That shouldn't have been in here. Some aluminum wheel locks, lock nuts. These are the front camber blocks, and they're made out of Stiffzol. Still can't get used to that sometimes. This is the kind of part that, you know, can wear, and if you're doing a lot of changes to the front end geometry, that you'll wear out your threads. The Stiffzol is just, it's going to make it harder to rip one of the ball sockets or ball joints out. So that's more of a safety item. I got some titanium ball studs in different lengths. I hate ball diffs. Some people swear by them, love them. They need a lot of maintenance, and they can be very difficult to tune. It's kind of an art. Whereas with gear diffs, you put in the fluid you want, and you can leave them practically through an entire season without touching it. So I went ahead and got the gear diff option. Here's my servo. ProTech, I've used these before, really like them. If you look at my various builds, I'm sure you'll see me putting this very same servo into more than one of my buggies or trucks. It's a low profile digital servo. They're one of the fastest servos on the market. I mean, it's outstandingly fast. These are some brass weights. You can always buy lead weight, but there's, for example, a very specific location on the TLR that is underneath the gearbox, and you have to have their brass weight to fit in that space. It is definitely recommended for certain types of tracks and setups. You know, bear in mind that weight down low is actually an advantage, especially when you are running the modified class with a two-wheel drive car, because they can just be little wheelie machines. It can be hard to keep traction at the rear tires. So having the car weigh a little more can make it a little more well-behaved, a little more docile. I hate to say that for something that's running a 7-turn motor. Docile isn't exactly the word that would normally come to mind, but definitely going to be running these, or one or more of. I went ahead and got the front and rear sway bar kit. A lot of people run sway bars on the stadium two-wheel drive stadium trucks. So having those is a good way to go from the get-go. The 25 tooth aluminum servo horn, the TLR item, is the best way to go, because on some of their kits, the buggy in particular, and we'll see if this one holds true to this, there's only so much space available underneath the plastic parts that mount and hold the front end. And if the horn is too long, it simply won't fit. They designed their horn to fit, you know, just with enough clearance to get by, so it's as long as it can be, but still fit into the buggy. So I highly recommend getting their excuse me, their servo horn, and in whatever tooth count you need for your specific servo. Again, a little bit of weight up front in particular can really help. This is the 30-degree front end in brass. It's the front pivot, mounts the swing arms. And I thought I would start here and go from there. This will help keep the front end on the ground, keep it from wheeling quite so much. And that's about it. I've got tires and wheels on the way. So I'll tell you about my tire choice at the time they arrive. I'm pretty much going with slicks or close to slick tires, because I'll be running on clay indoors, very hard packed, no loose dirt kind of stuff. So you really want a slick tire, or almost slick, for that surface. So I'm gonna put everything away and pull the bags as I need them and go through. We'll be starting with the going through the instruction manual step by step. So it's time to start the build, and if you've watched my videos in the past, you know that if it's available, I always start out with a blank setup sheet, and I usually try to find setup sheets from established racers, professional racers, and I kind of look across a bunch of them if possible. What are the commonalities? And first I organize them by the type of track that I'm going to be racing on, and I'm going to be using one of Dakota Fenn's build sheets as a baseline instead of the stock build. This is for an indoor track, smooth, hard packed, dry, high bite. That's the environment that I normally drive in. It's late in the winter, so there's not going to be any outdoor racing at this time. It's all going to be indoor, dry or blue groove type tracks, clay environments, that kind of thing. So this should be a good build. And if you look across, you know, multiple build sheets, which I have, there's a tremendous amount of common factors. Almost everyone is running the short arm for the VLA setting. Almost everyone is running a 25-degree kick angle. Everybody's using 5-degree caster. There's so many things that are just, you know, standard. So that just makes it easier. You know, and this is one of the things that a lot of people have mentioned about the stadium trucks is with a good baseline setup, there's very little tuning to be done. Tires, of course, is always your number one thing. But beyond that, you don't do as much to these trucks because they're just not as finicky as the buggies or even the all-wheel drive buggies and trucks. So even the short course trucks. So anyway, that's where I'm going to go as far as this build. These sheets can be found a lot of times on the manufacturer's websites. There's also a site that has a database full of setup sheets, and it goes back pretty far. So if you've got an older car that you're racing and you want to, you know, you're not having a much luck with your setups. You can go and find setup sheets that are proven, and they're listed by the type of tracks and by class, so whether you're going mod or stock. Now, I don't remember the name of that site off the top of my head. I'll try to put a link down in the description for you guys or somewhere in this series of videos. So watch all the videos, and you really should. I'm sorry if some people find my videos to be long and wordy. I try to provide as much information as I can. Sometimes I get comments from people saying, you know, why did you fast forward through this section, or how come you didn't do a more detailed shock build? I've put together a lot of cars. If I did a full-on shock build for every single car, that would be a tremendous amount of work on my shoulders to repeat all of that information every time. So watch a couple of my builds on different cars. There's a tremendous amount of information in these videos. And while it may seem tedious, you know, sit down and binge watch several builds, because I talk about different tools, different techniques, things that are just not available otherwise. You're just not going to get that information other than through a tremendous amount of experience or a lot of listening to people. And I've been in this hobby on and off for over 40 years, so I've picked up a lot, and I try to put as much into all of the video series as I can. So watch to the end. And if you like these videos, if you're getting good information out of it, take the time to log in to YouTube, subscribe to my channel, and click like on my videos. That's the -- thing you can do to help me so that I can continue to produce these videos. I actually stopped for a year. If people aren't gonna, I mean, I get so many people watching these. People watch all over the world, and only a small segment of you guys actually take the time to subscribe and like. And that really is kind of lame. Sorry, but you're lame. If you can't take a minute to to click a couple buttons for me after I spent hours putting this stuff together for you and the benefit you're getting out of it, come on, get with it. Subscribe and like so I can make a few bucks off this. I make a fraction of what I spend. I mean, literally like 2% of what I've spent over the last few years doing all these videos for you guys. I've actually gotten back from a little bit of advertising money. I mean, you really begrudge me that? Click like and subscribe, or watch someone else's videos. I don't care. So anyway, I have a blank setup sheet. I'm going to copy in things as I do them and make the changes and do the build. You should be doing the same thing. That way, when you go to the track for the first time, you know exactly what your car is set up for. And if you make changes, scratch out or bring a fresh blank with you and fill in any changes you make as you're doing your tuning and adjusting and getting your car tuned for every particular track. And that way you can write down the track, you got your conditions, and if you go back to a track that you haven't been to in a while, you can pull up your old sheet and go, oh, that's right, yeah, I had, you know, that setting and I need to switch that. So it's a good way to go. They provide these and you should make use of them.